Winds of Exchange pledges are finally shipping out to players across the US, and with a whole new set and card pool to figure out, sometimes it can get a little daunting trying to find all the synergies and lines of play on your own. So today, we'll be covering 12 tips and tricks for Winds of Exchange that you can be on the lookout for while digging into your brand new decks, in addition to a few things to be mindful of while playing with the new mechanics. Without further ado, let's get started. To start with, Exchange Program is actually a very important Ecodon card, almost acting as the new Exile. Ecodon is capable of some mass capture with cards like Shrewd Investor and Trading Frenzy. Exchange Program can help get creatures loaded up with Captured Ember out of your battle line and into the opponent's, reading play, choose a friendly flank creature and an enemy flank creature. If you do, swap control of those creatures. Capture 4 with Shrewd Investor, then send it over to the opponent where that Ember will become yours when you destroy it. Exchange Program is also great for taking hold of enemy creatures with great destroyed effects like Dust Imp or Hapless Cadet, so you can benefit from them instead. And of course, Exchange Program isn't your only option. Cards like Tourist Trap and Shizuoku Swapper also do similar things. Another great swap card is Uncommon Currency, allowing you to exchange it for an enemy artifact. Pair that with Auction Off, which reads play, purge an artifact. Its controller gains 1 Ember. Now you could just play Auction Off to begin with and purge the opponent's artifact while it's under their control, but perhaps you don't want to give them that extra Ember, maybe it puts them in check. Instead, take control of their artifact with Uncommon Currency and then purge it, so you not only permanently get rid of their artifact, but you get the Ember for purging it. I think Reclaimed by Nature is still the better version, but Auction Off fits in perfectly with Ecodon's theme and flavor. Keeping in the theme of Exchange, Forced Retirement is a card very similar to Auction Off but with creatures, reading play, destroy creature. If you do, its controller gains 1 Ember. Just like last time, maybe you don't want to give the opponent an Ember for destroying their creature, so you could start off with an Exchange Program or Shizuoku Swapper to take control of that enemy creature, then destroy it with Forced Retirement to kill the creature and gain the Ember for doing so. Even outside of Forced Retirement, cards like Generous Offer would do the trick too. Cursed Relic is a pretty infamous Ecodon card at this point, enhancing 6 bonus Ember, a whole key's worth, at the price of you not being allowed to play it or discard it from your hand outside of card abilities. If it ends up in your hand, it essentially acts as a permanent chain if you have no way to rid yourself of it. Ideally, you would tokenize it before it gets there. So what are some ways to rid yourself of Cursed Relic if it shows up in your hand? Here are a few cards to look out for. The Old Tinker lets you discard a card from your hand, then draw a card. Trade Secrets lets you discard any number of Ecodon cards from your hand, which includes Cursed Relic, then steal an Ember for each card discarded that way. Scrap Scrounger is also an option, but only if you have an artifact in your discard pile. Then you could get your artifact back while choosing Cursed Relic to swap it with, getting it out of your hand that way. Shopping Spree would also work, a pretty great card overall. Or you could just straight up archive it. Cursed Relic doesn't say anything about being unable to be archived, so even though you may be clogging up your archives, it may be worth it to stop chaining yourself. Maybe a portion of your deck's game plan is to archive cards it doesn't want, so Cursed Relic would be the perfect option. Speaking of archives, Cultural Exchange is a really weird Star Alliance card introduced in this set that reads play. Your opponent puts each card from their archives into their hand. Why would you ever want to put the opponent's archived cards back into their hand? One reason I could think of is if they're piloting a Mars deck with lots of abduction. If they've been archiving your creatures with cards like Scoop Up, Collector Worm, Suspended Animation, or Uxlik the Zookeeper, you could force them out of their archives with Cultural Exchange. Those cards specifically mention that when your creatures leave their archives, those creatures will actually go right back into your hand, so you'll get those abducted creatures back and ready to be played again. Another reason may be if the opponent has been archiving combo cards, saving them for a very specific time. You could disrupt their whole strategy by forcing those cards back into their hand early when they can't be used as effectively. Now, instead of having them safely tucked away in their archives for later, they're stuck holding them in hand at an inopportune time. It's still a rather risky play. The card as a whole could come back to bite you if you play it incorrectly. Cultural Exchange is definitely going to be a discard much of the time, or sometimes it just won't have any effect at all outside of its Ember Pip. Another difficult card to play is the Brobnar creature Kretchy, who reads, each time a player exalts a creature, or a creature captures Ember, put 1 Ember on that creature from the common supply. If your deck captures or exalts its creatures a lot, Kretchy will almost always be an instant discard. But if your opponent is using a house like Sanctum or Saurian, Kretchy could really hurt them, making it extremely dangerous for them to exalt using Saurian abilities or capture with Sanctum. He acts as great countertech for those 2 houses. And actually, a Brobnar card Kretchy goes great with is Fresh Marks, so when you play it and destroy friendly creature, you essentially get to double exalt 3 enemy creatures, making for some massive potential Ember gain. Kretchy is another risky card, so you'll really have to analyze the matchup closely before choosing to play him. Nightapult is a fan favorite Sanctum artifact reading action. The next time a friendly creature enters play this turn, you may have it enter anywhere in your battle line, ready. That's a super great effect, and there are a few targets in particular that Nidapult would be especially potent with. One of these is Zephon the Opulent, who can't be used if there aren't at least 2 friendly token creatures in play, but he makes 2 when you play him, and reaps for 2 extra Ember, making 3 total, half a key. Being able to play him down ready, make 2 tokens, then reap for 3 Ember is awesome. Anahita the Trader would be a good Nidapult target as well if you have artifacts to trade. In the past, Anahita has been notoriously difficult to use because she's so small and easy to kill, but Nidapult could let you use her amazing ability instantly. The Ember Road is a cool Ecodon artifact that reads Omni. Put 1 trade counter on the Ember Road, then gain 1 Ember for each trade counter on it. Give control of the Ember Road to your opponent. So it keeps building up trade counters turn after turn whenever the players choose to use it, increasing its Ember gain each time, though it gets riskier and riskier because it transfers over from player to player after each use, allowing them to use it for more than you previously did. Magistrate Crispus from House Saurian can keep this from happening, however, reading, at the end of your turn, each player takes control of each creature and artifact they own. This would keep the Ember Road from ever going over to the opponent, allowing you exclusively to reap its ever-increasing benefits. It makes Crispus a priority 1 threat, and at a raw 8 power, he's not that easy to remove from the board. Next up is Tactical Officer Moon from Star Alliance. She's back from Worlds Collide and is perfect as a Winds of Exchange reprint. The ability to reorganize battle lines in this set can be incredibly useful, setting up for more potent camaraderie or stronger together plays, or making creatures and tokens like Friendly Guide and Bot more usable. You could rearrange the opponent's battle line to set up for Grand Melee, or put creatures you want to swap for on flanks in preparation for something like Exchange Program. Someone commented on one of my previous videos that Moon is a great counter against Bryozorch, putting him in the easiest to kill location possible, placing it all the way on its controller's left flank. Moon can help make splash damage more potent or get creatures closer to or away from taunt. She's super versatile in this set and definitely a creature to watch for. And now I've just got a few miscellaneous tips that I think will be helpful during gameplay and as we continue to learn the new set. First, look for enhancements on the common archivable token makers, such as Hieron or Pressgang. Each house in the set has one of these, a common card that makes tokens that then gets archived if its conditions are met. They're easily recurable cards, meaning that if they're enhanced, you can repeatedly benefit from those enhancements. For example, my dad actually opened a deck with these 2 copies of Hieron, one with the draw pip and the other with 2. Being able to recur 3 whole draw pips every time you call Ecodon, as long as you meet the archive requirements of Hieron, is very strong, so be on the lookout for enhancements landing in key locations like these. Here's an important fact. You cannot make a token creature if you have no top card of your deck to make one with. So if you play a card that instructs you to make a token creature, but your deck is empty and you have nothing to make one out of, you don't make one. You don't reshuffle either, since you only reshuffle if you're instructed to draw a card. Just a small thing to make note of. It would be unfortunate to plan a turn that involved making lots of tokens, only to find you can't because you have no deck. And lastly, pay close attention to which cards are being used as token creatures. It can be easy to go the course of a game and forget to check the underside of each token you make to see what card it actually is, but that's important information. Knowing if you just tokenized an important piece of Ember control or board control is critical, so you can prioritize getting it back into your deck. Or you could use cards like Dragnet or Avid Collecting to put them right back into your hand if need be. In fact, the Strange Shell token is built entirely around that concept. It's just something to be cognizant of while playing and enjoying Winds of Exchange. And there we have it, 12 tips and tricks for Winds of Exchange that hopefully will be helpful to you as you discover the new set. Be sure to check out my other videos on Winds of Exchange for even more analysis of the houses and card pool. And of course, also make sure to subscribe for more KeyForge content like this. Thank you all so much for watching, and I can't wait to see you all again in the next one. See you later.